Today we're going to be talking to Donald Kelly, CEO of the Sales Evangelist. Donald is going to be telling us about his journey as an entrepreneur and how tools was a part of his journey as he grew his business to 8 years old and several employees after. So I'm excited to share that with you as we get into this podcast. So stay tuned. We're gonna dive into this episode right now. Donald, it's so great to have you here, man. I'm excited to let the listeners know who you are and how we got to be doing life together and stuff. So good to have you, brother. How are you?
Hey man, it's a pleasure. Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and I'm grateful for the launch of this podcast. I mean, I wish this podcast was around when I first started launching my business, because there's so many. Just hearing the episodes so far and hearing some of the things that you're talking about with these guests. It's like, man, this is cool. A lot of good insights, a lot of smart people. So I'm grateful to be able to be here. So thank you, man. And thanks. Yeah, it's great to go down this path and journey with you, man. It's exciting to see your progress and the great things you guys are doing.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Yeah, and we do it for our listeners, and a lot of our listeners are not tech savvy, and they ask for help and how they can grow and start and get to where they want to get to faster using tech tools. So I appreciate that you can come on and talk to us a little about your journey and how marketing technology tools sort of helped you along the way. Because I'm assuming that every intersection you've got these different tools that you got to help to then sort of lead you forward, right? So
Oh,
what?
yeah.
But yeah, so why don't we start by telling us who you are and telling us what you do?
Yeah, man. So my name is Donald Kelly. I run an organization known as the Sales Evangelist. You probably could see my little logo back there. And it's a sales training organization. So typically we help individuals and companies improve their selling skills. Companies bring us in or bring their sales team to our programs to help them to learn how to do the fundamental selling, improve their sales mindset, learn how to use technology like LinkedIn to improve their selling, and just to grow their sales from their sales perspective, interaction with other individuals, not their e-commerce sales, but their business selling. And then also I run and founded a studio, TSE Studios, which also produces podcasts and content for organizations, companies as well. So
Yeah, and obviously, it would be hard to not say that you're producing this podcast. So just want to make sure that we plug that in. You are you got an amazing team, an amazing gentleman who is helping us to put this podcast out there. So we appreciate TSE Studio and the Sales Evangelist for everything that you're doing to help us out, man. So thank you for that.
of course.
And obviously sales and marketing are married to each other, and they are sort of bride and groom, and they're supposed to be living together for until death do their part, right? And so I think a lot of people make the mistake in thinking that they have no relationship, and
Yeah.
it's one can't function without the other. But I know how important sales is to that process. And the question is sometimes, what does sales have to do with marketing tool? But some of those that you mentioned just now, we realize that those are important to grow in your business. If you're not thinking about those sales tools integrate with your marketing effort, it's going to be tough for you. So how did you get to this point from when you got started? How did you get to this point now? Because I know you're doing some awesome stuff and you've grown. You're well over the 5 year mark. But talk to us about your journey to today.
Yeah, good question, man. But you're right with the idea that we're the sales and marketing connected at the hips, and the companies that can better understand that, they'll thrive and succeed much quickly, and not to put those in two separate silos. So especially when you're starting off, like, as an entrepreneur listening to this, or you're a small business and you have an idea for this business and you want to get it off the ground, like you're everything. And I'm sure you could relate to this too, Ricardo, where you're like the chef, the cook, the bottle
Oh yeah.
washer, the waiter. You're
Oh
doing
yeah.
everything.
Yeah. The cleaner, the janitor, everybody, man.
And when it comes to like the marketing, sometimes we think that, we look at bigger companies and we see their marketing campaigns and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, we're going to get people to do that and all of that things. I mean, it's the reality is I was creating those graphics that I was putting out there, or I was creating like the editing some of my content that I was sending out, or if it was like the blogs, or the social media strategy, I was doing all of those things, finding the best one. I was using Hootsuite at first, and then I started using different tools. But you do all of those, and then naturally those activities lead to conversations, which lead to appointments, and then somebody has to close the darn deal. And that's where the sales side comes in, right? And where I was able to have those dialogues and this discussion and close the deals. But starting off, I was a software sales rep working in Boca Raton, and I worked for this software company, and I was curious about technology, and it was a tech firm, right? So one of my buddies and I, we were talking about podcasting, and
Yeah.
he had me come on his show to do an episode. He had a podcast about personal development, personal improvement, called
Hmm.
Starving Doubts. And he said, you should come onto a segment. And then he just encouraged me. It's like, you should do your own podcast, man. So I eventually got the gumption to do that. And I didn't know there was a business that was going to develop from that, but let's just go and have fun with it. So I started a
Yeah.
podcast, and I can tell you, some of you who are scared to do your business, I found out about, I went on his podcast probably back in like, January of 2013. Guess when I finally launched my podcast?
Well, like a year after that.
Pretty much. It was December 2013, because I was just so afraid of the technology, bro. I
I
was
know,
so
man.
afraid of
Yeah.
messing up. I was so afraid because I didn't know what to do. And then he even gave me a free training, like a program that he went through. And he's like, this guy, I got the username and password. Go and watch these things and learn how to do it. But I was still afraid because I was concerned that, what if I mess up? What if I don't know how to do it? What if I don't do it right? And eventually I started in April with a video, and I sometimes bring that video back, my very first video that I did, and it was on YouTube. And then I had my Mac, and I just used like my Mac to edit it, like was it not QuickTime, iMovie. Try to
Right.
edit, took hours to do that, and then finally put it out there, and I'm like, oh man, this is crap, thing going nowhere. And then I stopped, and then I just started listening to more podcasts and hearing other people who were started launching their businesses and started doing something. And I was like, something's got to give. I got to do this, man. And then in December, I went back through that training, and I just started playing with the podcast idea, and the podcast became something. And then over the years, I mean, over the next like several months, people started to listen. I mean, random people. I mean, I created an image in Canva, which is one of the tools that I love as a digital marketing tool. But I
Yeah.
created an
I
image in
love
Canva.
Canva too.
Yeah. And then I went ahead and I put that into on Facebook. And this guy who goes to my church, Jose, and maybe he'll listen to this. And Jose saw that image and saw the podcast, and was like, Donald, you know what? I'm interested in some sales stuff. Let's talk. And I was like, what? Somebody want to talk to me, like to do business? So I did. Jose hired me, and I did some marketing and sales consulting for him. And then another lady found a podcast named Destiny, and she listened to it. And then as a stranger, somebody I never knew, and then so she connected with me and started to do coaching with me. And then a couple other people I had a consulting. So now it was like, think about that, like 3-4 months later, I'm generating some money. Maybe it was altogether about 6 months later, I was generating money from this podcast that I was
Yeah.
afraid to do, that I didn't do. So it just kind of goes back to show, it wasn't pretty too, Ricardo. Like the images and things that I was trying to do with marketing, it wasn't pretty, but it was just a simple fact that I started and started playing with those marketing tools and started playing with marketing technology. And I didn't get, still didn't have, what do you call it? Uh, any of those big Adobe editing software,
Yeah.
just basic tools like Canva and a basic mic. And that was my marketing wing. That was my marketing technology at that point.
This podcast is sponsored by MeisterTask, the most intuitive task manager on the web. MeisterTask is an easy-to-use project management tool, makes it easy and fun and colorful to get all your projects managed in one place. As an entrepreneur, I use MeisterTask to help me manage all of my projects. I can drag and drop different tasks. I can assign key people to the task. I can set deadlines and schedules and enjoy just beautiful colors while I do that. If you are interested in trying MeisterTask, go to meistertask.com/BMT tools. That's meistertask.com/BMT tools. And you can sign up for a free trial when you upgrade to the Pro plan. So get started for free today and invite your team members and get productive together. That's so powerful, man. The takeaway from what you just said is, one, you can't be afraid to get started, and you can't think about perfection as an entrepreneur, because that's going to hold you back. So if I understand you clearly, what I hear you saying is that, one, you got to get out of your own way. You got to stop that procrastination stuff, and you got to think about how you want to get moving, right? But there are tools, and there are tech tools that would then sort of get in your way and scare you and kind of prevent you from wanting to move forward. But you can't be afraid of those tools, because they're not going to hurt you. You have to, regardless of where you are in your journey, if you're starting up or you're growing, you've got to then be able to be curious and
Yes.
explore these tools and use them and test them. Because if you talk about iMovie, and a lot of people might not even have Macs, but iMovie was one of those things that you'd use to then edit your video on your own, and then you would do it in Canva to sort of do your own graphics in Canva. And there are all these other tools that you then have to navigate in order to get a big picture, right?
Yeah.
So that's powerful, man. But the most important thing is, you got to get started. If you haven't gotten started yet, like, you have to start,
Yeah.
because nothing happens to a wheel if it's not turning. It's
Mm.
just going to be sitting there. So I
Amen to that.
appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you sharing that. So I had a question about, so let's look at it from the marketing tech perspective.
Yeah.
What were some of those tools then that you use to grow? Because you talk about how you got started and where you are now, but as you journey, what were some of those tools that you had to then use to get to where you need to get to?
So I know you're a big fan of Meissner Task and the Meissner Task, awesome stuff. So big shout out to the folks over at Meissner Task. Um,
Yeah, big shout out to MeisterTask.
I didn't know anything about them back in the days, but I used Asana because our team. What started to happen with our team was so let's about a year, 6 months into this thing, I realized that I couldn't do the podcast. I was doing a software sales role at the day job. I could do the podcast, but it just was taking up time. So one of my friends, that same friend, he had some friends, the team members that were editing his show. So he connected me to them, and they started doing some stuff on my side. And that I didn't know anything about project management and what tools I can use to help grow my, keep track of things in the business. So I just Googled, and people told me about Asana as well. So I said, let me try Asana. So I started using Asana to
Mm,
project my episodes. And then
yeah.
also I eventually started using that for some of my client tracking as well. And I eventually matured out of Asana and went to different things later on. But that was one of the first things that I used to keep track as far as project management and so forth, and some of our marketing assets being developed. Canva for sure. I'm a big fan of that, and I still use Canva to this day. And then as far as obviously like basic stuff like Google Analytics, I started figuring out what to do with that. I set up my Google Analytics on my WordPress site, and these are things that weren't too complicated. I just YouTube videos, and I wanted to see how many traffic, how many was coming to our podcast, our website, and how we can get folks further. And I needed a CRM, and for those who are not familiar with that, is a customer relationship management tool to keep track of your deals and so forth. But one that was free, and it still is free, was HubSpot. HubSpot has this free CRM, and I started using HubSpot to keep track of my deals as a tool. And then another tool that a tech tool that I started to play with was when I started getting proposals, was a tool called PandaDoc. Because before, in the company that I was working at, you would actually go on the intranet, the internal internet, find a proposal when you have a deal, edit the proposal, make sure it's the right one, then get it to your manager, and then your manager get it to the CEO, final sign off. So this is probably like 2 days before the proposal get to the client. The client gets it, maybe sits on it, goes on vacation, so it's like another 2-3 weeks before the deals actually get signed. And it could take up that long. It was like, this is silly. What if we had a digital one? And I looked, searched, and found PandaDoc. So it's allowed me to create my proposals now when I meet with clients, and then I can simply send that proposal to them. They can electronically sign it and get it back, and I don't have to worry about them printing, signing, scanning, and uploading,
Right.
and getting it
Yeah.
back to me. And it can get on a mobile. So those tools were some of the first ones that I got. So recap, obviously Gmail, big fan of Gmail, and I was super excited too because I wanted to get, you wanted your domain and you wanted that email. I didn't want that Donald Kelly at gmail.com. I wanted to look like a boss. So
Right. Right.
um, my friend taught, she was doing my website and set up, she's like, you can set up your Gmail as your domain. So you can have Donald at the Sales Evangelist. I was like, what? And I thought that was like revolutionary. What? So Donald, I got my domain set up, had the website set up, had my Gmail set up. I started using Asana to keep track of my task. And then I started using Canva, continue to use Canva to create my graphics and so forth. And then I started using what you call a PandaDoc to keep track of my proposals, and HubSpot for my leads. And HubSpot has this marketing wing. I mean, so they're a huge marketing company. That's their main forte. But they have this opt-in feature back then that you could put on your website as a lead tool that they had. So if somebody opted in on my website, they would automatically get put into my HubSpot system, and I was able to keep track of how many leads and have those opt-in fields set up on my website. So HubSpot was a huge piece that helped me out as I was getting started and to grow my email list. And I was using MailChimp at the beginning for sending out emails to clients. So those are some of the tech tools I started off with.
Awesome, man. And all of these tools are familiar.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of similarities, just building business on this. And what I'm hearing you saying is that, and you think about Asana as a project management tool. And again, shout out to MySetask, because that's the one that we use. And MySetask has been really gracious to us and has sponsored this podcast. But planning is essential, and just having a tool that helps you to plan your projects, and for every project there are tasks that has to be completed, and it's going to be very hard for you to keep all of those tasks in your head and just kind of have that sort of mental checklist, and it can be a lot of pressure. So you need a tool, right?
Yeah.
You need a tool to be able to flesh things out, if you may, and organize yourself, so you understand how to go about your day and how to achieve your goals. And it's the same thing that you were saying with Asana. MySutask also does that. I actually used Asana before, but
Hmm.
I fell in love with MySutask because it was a lot easier, I think, for for a team. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter which one I think you use, as long as you're comfortable with it. I think that's what matters.
And you
As
get
long as it's
started.
helping you to do what you're doing, right? But you have to get started. And so,
Mhm.
and I hear you also say, once you start organizing yourself by using a planning tool, you then got to get into other stuff like Canva, which you said you've continued to use, where
Yeah.
you then got
Yeah.
to design, and you got to keep that aesthetic appeal as you build and as you journey, right? You talk about analytics, is sort of Google Analytics, and these just understanding what's coming in terms of traffic, so that you can better position yourself. So that's pretty awesome. HubSpot, which is really cool as well. Once you start getting traffic coming in, then the idea is that you naturally progress to getting clients or getting leads, right? So you need to have a space that you can then manage those leads, and a CRM, customer relations management system, is super helpful in that regard. But you have to also communicate with the leads, and so tying into Mailchimp. So you could, if you think about it, you could see how all these things tie together to sort of build success on the way, as you make your way to the top, right? So
Yes.
my question is now, so how are those tools then? I mean, are they any different from what you use now, or are you still? I mean, I know you said you still use a lot of these. Have you add any more tools to your sales stack, or to
Oh
your
my goodness.
your entrepreneur stack, if you may?
How much time do we have?
I know, right? It's a lot of
Yeah.
tools, man.
Yeah, and again, going back to this, and some of you are listening to this and you're like, "Oh crap, man, I ain't going to. This is too intimidating." Don't. Again, I've started in 2013, and now this is 2021. I was going to say
Yeah,
2020, 2021. So this is going into our 8th year. This end of this year will be our 8th year that we've launched and started doing stuff. So naturally, over this time, you find that things evolve. If you are still using the same stuff from when you first started, something is wrong. You have to evolve and become better. So there's what we started to do was Mailchimp had its power and capability, but I wanted to do more automation, and at the time they didn't have a lot of automation. So I looked at a tool, and it was just fresh on the block at the time, called Active Campaign. Now, Active Campaign does your email automation, and then they also evolved. They had a CRM that built into that as well. They had tools to be able to connect to like your Google to your Google Analytics and to your website, and also integration through Zapier. If you don't know what Zapier is, I'm sure
oh
Ricardo is
yeah,
going to do an episode on Zapier and explain a little bit
yes,
more about Zapier to you. But essentially, Zapier allows you to take these without having like expensive developers to take two different software and have them communicate with each other. And that was like revolutionary, because when I first started, that wasn't easy. Like you would hope certain tools could speak together, and you would have to get like API and get developers. But now Zapier just allows you to, you got a lead from your Active Campaign, and you want that to turn into, go into a proposal with PandaDoc. Great. Those two can
right,
make that happen. So, anyway, so that was, I evolved from Mailchimp to Active Campaign. It was a little bit more in price, but it was much better for what we needed at the time and where we are going with our business. Another one that I mean, I still stay with Canva, but then I eventually got a graphic designer, right, who was able to help do some of those things. But I even like certain things. I love doing the design work. So even like this morning, dead serious, we're doing a boot camp with my team, a sales training boot camp. So I did that in Canva,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But I still like that element of it. Then one of the tools that I've evolved from, like the CRM, I'd used HubSpot for a while, but then as our team started to grow, we started to use, we went to Active Campaign CRM, but then still needed some more analytics. And then I went to a tool called Pipeline Deals. And now we're working with a tool that is called, and Pipeline Deals was great for the time that I used it. And now I'm using another tool called, uh, it's come on, losing my mind. Try on course. Yeah,
try
that's
of
the,
course,
and the reason why I use that, it has CRM, it has the phone built in, and it also has the capability to do email outreach automation. So if I'm sending an email to a cold prospect, instead of me remembering what are the next emails I'm going to send, I write those 3, 4 emails that are short emails. I can put them based on days, And within those, between those days, maybe say day one, I send email, then day number two, I do a phone call. It gives me the notification to do that. Day four, I send a LinkedIn message. Then day five, send another email. I don't have to sit there and remember to send all of those emails. It does it, but it's able to keep track of that in the system. So and plus, again, my team evolved. So we have one, two, three, four business development reps. So then they're in the using that CRM. So from using MailChimp or HubSpot now evolved as well. But at the time when I was growing, it didn't have certain of those features. So it just allowed me this was able to become a true sales CRM for my team. And I evolved with that one. And again, the story could go on, but I'm still using PandaDoc for our proposal tool. um, I
Yeah.
tried other ones, but PandaDoc is the king for me. Um, and yeah, so I mean, those are some of the ones that's still been there. And eventually, left for our team, we had left with a project management tool, we left Asana and went to Trello and used Trello as well. So, there's different evolutions in your sales journey or in your business journey. And you have to be open to change just as much as you
Yeah.
would be open to if you're going to get started. And if anybody is in the same position using the same exact tools when they first got started all the time, it's like, are you growing? Or are you taking advantage of opportunities to grow? And
Yeah.
usually, if you're staying the same stuff, it means you're probably not willing to change and not trying new things.
Yeah, man, that's so true, man. There's always a new tool being produced and released, launched almost every day, right? And I suppose at some point we got to get the statistics on that. Like we know how many babies are born per second, and I was kind of curious to know how many tools are then launched on a daily basis. But there's so many of them, and it's really a matter of just again understanding that, listen, like you've got to be able to you've got to be able to figure out which one of these tools can best help you. And a lot of these tools that you mentioned, they're free. A lot of them are free, and a lot of them offer free trial as well.
Yep.
So there are no risk involved to just test these tools out, see how they make sense to you. But it's also good to know, what do you want, what are you trying to achieve, because these tools can't read your mind, but you've got to be able to then understand what you want, and then you can sort of map that up with a tool that helps you. You talk about that. Well, I've never heard of these tools that you mentioned, like the pipeline deals and the trying course. So there's always this education that comes in, right? And I want to try them out. So just being curious, being adaptable, right? And just be willing to keep moving. I think those are three things that I'm actually learning from you, as you tell me about your journey and as you talk about these tools. And I know, so your business is over 8 years old, and staying in business for 2 years is not even easy, man. And you've managed to get past that. How have you done it? Because obviously I know these tools have played a key role, and there's a combination of tools and humans, right? You then sort of that combination is perfect. But how have you done it, and what would you say is the best thing that you've done in the course of getting up to this point?
The tools, you're right. I mean, a fast car is only so good as its driver, right? And I think for me, what I learned was you can't grow in a silo. And so, as some of you who are entrepreneurs, you're listening to this, you're doing this as a side hustle, or maybe this is your main business, and you're thinking that I hear the stories about these entrepreneurs. I see them, the Zuckerbergs of the world. I see the Bill Gates of the world. But what sometimes we see the entrepreneur, but sometimes we don't see is that behind that entrepreneur or alongside them is a crew. There's a group of people that make it happen. And sometimes we think that we need to do this by ourselves. I need to work in a garage or in the basement, or I need to work every night and do all these things by myself. The answer to that is no. Sometimes you're going to go without paying yourself for a while because you need that team to help get them going. And I remember that time, those days where it was starting off and you're trying to develop stuff and you would pay your team, and you got a little bit out of it, but they got a lot more because I realized I needed smarter people, people who are smarter than me. If you ever get to the point where you're the smartest person in the room, something is wrong. So I
Yeah.
started getting with smarter people and being humble to figure out what can I learn from them? What insights can they do? Can they do something better than I could do it? Can somebody edit my podcast better than I can? Yes. Can somebody do graphic design better than I can? Of course. And got them. Can somebody help manage a team better than I can? Yes. And with the right people in the right seats, that was able to help us to grow over the years, to the point now that I think we just have our 12th team member that's starting on Monday. Um, but it just kind of goes to show that that's possible, when you it's just great, and it's possible when you can get the right people in the right seat and they can do the right things. And it doesn't have to be full-time salary. When you're starting off, you get people who are going to do contract roles, and that's totally fine. You may not give all of them pension or any of that stuff, but at least you're starting off and you're starting to do something to help them. And in the turn, they help you, but it's getting the right people to help you out. And I think that's one of the best things that's helped us out over the years, um, to grow.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. And you're right. I love how you put it. You can have a fast car, but if you don't have a driver who understands how to make that baby run, it's just worth nothing, right? And so I liken to it too, like a carpenter, building a perfect house. Like if you don't have the right tools, that perfect house is just going to look good on paper, but if you got to have the tools to then make that look the way you need it to look. So
And then,
so that's
like you're
yeah.
saying, knowing how to use the tool. So listening to a podcast like this or connecting with someone like you and taking advantage of the tools that you guys train people on, and how to use them, like that
Absolutely,
helps
man.
me become a better carpenter.
Absolutely. And as you listen to this, you hear us mentioning these different tools. Write them down, make a note of them, and check them out, because that is the only way that you can then move things forward and move your knowledge forward. You always be learning, right? And so you want to check these tools out. I mean, we talked about Asana, we talked about Canva, we talk about Google Analytics, Mailchimp, HubSpot. You may have heard of these things before, and then that's the thing about the listening community. You hear about these things, just sort of just information passing through or passing by, but you can take a stop and stop for a minute and just have a look at them. Take a look and see how could this tool help you to grow and to go further faster, right? You talked about active campaign, pipeline deals, type on course. So those are some amazing tools right
Try,
there
try,
that
try,
you can
try on course.
try on tools. So yeah, try on tools. My bad.
Try
So
on
it's
course.
try on
It's
tools. And you
complicated
also
name.
talk about Gmail.
Yep.
Like at some point, I didn't realize that Gmail could then be tied into your private email. It's a private your domain, right?
Yeah.
G Suite
Yeah.
is also awesome. Awesome, man. I think at the end of the day, tools you need tools in your life as an entrepreneur. And like you said, you can't do things in an isolated fashion. It's going to be about how can you evolve, how can you grow, how can you move further faster, um, by asking yourself who can help you to do that. Because if you think selfishly that I'll do it, then you're never going to grow the way you want to grow. So you got to leap, you got to take some jumps, and bring some folks with you on the way. So appreciate the learning, man. I think
Of course.
my last question to you is there anything that I did not ask you um that you'd like to share?
Whatever your business idea is, whatever you're trying to accomplish, I want you to make sure you understand that there's you have purpose. You have a mission behind that. here's what I'm trying to get at with it. There are people out there who need what you have, uniquely what you can produce. You have competitors who can produce and do the same exact thing that you do. But there are people out there who need what Ricardo has. There are people out there that need what Dane has. People out there need what Barbara, what Samantha, what Lisa, what Chantel has. There are people out there who need that stuff. And it's your moral obligation to help them to learn about you. If you are sitting there with your talents and your skills and your solutions, and you're not going out and using these marketing tools to make yourself known and to solve the problem for these people, you're doing them a disservice, and you're doing yourself a disservice. They need what you have to offer. So I would say, when you listen to these episodes, go back and write them down, or maybe Ricardo and his team could put together a write-up of all of these different tools. But take these tools, take them and apply them, practice them, try them little by little. If you take them, try them, and practice them little by little, you're going to start improving. You're going to start getting your messaging out there even more so, and you're going to start impacting lives and changing people's lives. There are people out there who need what you have to offer. Let's get up and make it happen. You just got some great stuff from Ricardo and from these episodes so far. Let's make it happen today.
That's awesome, man. Listen, man, I really, really appreciate it. And I don't want to end before I let the listeners know that you have a podcast.
Yes.
And your podcast, which is the Sales Evangelist. And you've got to go and subscribe to that podcast. So tell the listeners how they can find the podcast, because I listen to your podcast and I'm a subscriber. I'm a big fan. Like, I get excited when I pull your podcast up and kind of listen to some of your guests and some of the tools and some of the strategy for, it's selling, right? Like you can't journey without sales in your pocket, man. You have to do, there's no sales, there's no life, and so you got to constantly do that. And you've done like so many episodes, like you essentially pioneered the sales conversation on the podcast. So talk to us a little about how we get to that podcast and how we get in touch and stay in touch with the Donald, man.
So thank you. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you subscribing. The podcast, you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google, just go ahead and search Sales Evangelist. Or if you'd like to as well, you can just go to Google and then search for, I'm not sure if you can hear my little guy out the door there, but if you can go to Google, you can go and search for Best Sales Podcast, and we'll show up on probably about 80% of those lists.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you, Donald. I really appreciate you spending time to do this, and definitely looking forward to staying in touch. And thank you for producing the podcast as well. So shout out to the guys at TSE Studio that's helping, and of course the guys over at the TSE, the Sales Evangelist as well. That's making things happen. So I really appreciate your mentorship and your coaching through this. So thank you, man.